You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Where is New Zealand's home of cricket? Craig Cumming has played at them all, coached at them all, broadcast at them all, and been a spectator at them all. So I think he's fairly well qualified to at least kick off the discussion with us. Craig, g'day mate, thanks for joining us. Can we start with the Basin Reserve, which I think we all agree is New Zealand cricket's spiritual home. Now, what are the pros and the cons of the Basin Reserve, first of all?
Yeah, it's always a good debate, and good afternoon, Piney. The Basin Reserve, certainly, it wasn't a great ground to enjoy playing on, and I say that for a couple of reasons. I call it the home of New Zealand cricket, because I think we've got the museum there. Most of our major events or historical events have happened at the Basin Reserve, and you certainly get that feel when you walk into the ground, but there's either a northerly or a southerly. Neither are very nice most of the time. It's got a massive block, so fielding on it used to be awful because you'd skin your knees. And then you used to have the dungeon downstairs from a changing room point of view. The good news is they've done a lot of that stuff up, but I think, and from a commentary point of view, awful because you've got to climb about 150 stairs and you're at the back of the RO Vount stand and you fight the pigeons. So luckily we've had some good records there. I'm going to wind up the Wellington listeners, but I do call it New Zealand's spiritual home, like you said. It's the historical part, but it certainly wasn't my favourite ground to play on. One of the major benefits, though, behind it used to be it was a great batting surface. So I used to love batting there. So as a cricketer, you used to look forward to turning up as a batter, but overall experience, it was never the best one, other than they were the best with the toasty pie machine. Always the first to have the toasty pie machine, Piney. It was the big plated one. They used to have all the fillings in the chiller. So that was the best part of the Basin Reserve.
Well, that's a key part, by the sounds of it, for player enjoyment and comfort. Yeah, absolutely. What about looking down? I mean, you're right. The commentary box is right at the top of the RA Vant stand. Once you're there, the view's pretty good, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. One of the things with commentary, there's two parts. You got to commentate off the screen, but one of the great things about the Basin Reserve, because you're behind the bowler's arm, and you can look up and you can see where the ball's going. You can see the field in front of you. So you've got the ability to call off the screen, but then look and predict what's going to happen because you can actually see the whole field. So you did right. That's one of the beauties there. It was just getting there was the challenge, getting up those stairs, especially in dress shoes. But no, that was, I mean, people don't probably realise, like some other grounds like Napier, beautiful commentary box, but you're in the corner down by third man and you're at ground level. So when the ball gets hit, you look up, you actually can't tell if it's going to go to a fielder or land in the space or go for 6 or 4. That is the great thing at the Basin Reserve, that you've got that ability. So, yeah, from that perspective, yeah, a lot of fun. And also, you're connected quite close to radio people, TV people, so you get to have a lot of interaction during the day.
All right, so that's the Basin Reserve and its pros and cons. Let's go to Hagley Oval. How does that compare along similar lines, or similar metrics?
I say this tongue-in-cheek, Piney, and I'm saying it because I'm leaving the country in a month's time. The number one problem, and this used to be me, so I'm actually throwing stones. The worst thing about going to Hagley is you've got to go to Cantabs. You got Cantab ground. So again, tongue-in-cheek, I mean, I've got family there. I grew up there. I represented that province, but I'm allowed to say that with tongue-in-cheek. But Hagley, a beautiful ground, absolutely beautiful ground. Done an amazing job. Again, a wonderful commentary box, but you're down in the corner. Again, don't quite have the same view, but one thing about it, it's big and it's spacious. From a playing point of view, I got to play on it at the very start. I used to play there a lot at Canterbury when it was just the old grounds. Absolutely wonderful. I know from a spectator's point of view, because I've got family who go, they're really tough there when it's hot because you can't get away from the sun because there's not a lot of shade on those banks. I know the players love it. The pitch is fantastic. The changing rooms are very good, and the viewing rooms are excellent. So, if you're going to do a ground and do it right, Hagley have ticked all those boxes. So, while I wind up the Cantabs by saying that, it's a great place to go whether you're playing, you're commentating and you're coaching. But I'm not calling it my favourite ground or best ground in New Zealand. All
right, we're going to come to that because just on Hagley, the other part of it is its location. And I saw the England team took scooters to the ground. I mean, whereas the Basin Reserve is basically a big roundabout, Hagley Oval, you're walking through Hagley Park and all of a sudden, here's an international cricket ground.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I think about is the practicality, Piney, in Wellington is bad because car parks. So we used to have to park in Wellington College. That's a long walk in dress shoes down around the roundabout. Trying to get over that roundabout, yes. Dangerous.
Yep.
And then if you think a car park warden is around the country are tough, well, you try and get a park at Hagley if you haven't got the right permit. You will not get past that first gate, and where you park at Hagley, if you don't get in that first gate, there is nowhere to park. You end up behind the hospital. Sometimes you've got to pretend you've got a limp and a broken finger to park an A&E. So that's actually one of the downsides of Hagley, even though from a walking point of view, you are better to take a scooter. But I was dressed in a suit, and if I fell off, I'd have ripped my suit. The difference in Wellington, if you try and take a scooter, you've got to go into the breeze. You actually go nowhere. So, those two things aren't great for both of those grounds.
All right, so we've had the Basin and Hagley. You alluded to it mysteriously. What is your favourite ground?
Well, interestingly, it's not University of Otago Oval. My favourite ground to play on was actually Queenstown because of heaps of different reasons. But actually, my favourite ground as a commentator and as a spectator, believe it or not, was Bay Oval. Couple of reasons. One, again, very much like Hagley, they've set it up beautifully. Car parking right beside the ground, so we always get that. There were a whole lot of food trucks behind the commentary box, but I just thought from a perspective that when you turn up there, Piney, in the middle of summer, it's always warm. So I think from a fan experience, you turn up, you enjoy the conditions so much. Like Hagley and like the Basin Reserve, you don't have a bad advantage spot because you basically sit all around it. I love the fact that from a commentary, we were behind the bowler's arm, but it was a new commentary box. It wasn't big, but we felt a little bit closer than those other two. So, Bay Oval, and maybe it's because of the weather, the atmosphere, you're close to the beach, you've got nice swimming pools, good accommodation. To me, that was I played there a couple of times, just had a really lovely feel. It was one of those places that could pour down, and the outfield is made of sand. You're literally back on it. So I don't know. Well, there was just a reason why I love it, and I think it might be to do with the weather. Coming from Dunedin, where it's colder, you know what it's like in Wellington. Even Christchurch in a day-nighter can get quite cold. So I think that's probably the only reason why, from a fan experience and from a personal experience, why I put that as my number one. All
right. Yeah. The other part about the mount, though, is there's not a heck of a lot of shade on that bank either.
No, there's not. No, you did right. There seems to be a nice breeze, but it's always a warm breeze, Piney, even if it, whichever way. Unlike, Wellington, Dunedin, we get the easterly or the southerly. Gee whiz, you're reaching for your rug. So, but not much to separate them, to be honest. But I think actually, we've left out probably the most important one is Timaru Boys High School Rectory. That is the home of champions. I was thinking about it just before, Piney. It produced Brendan Laney as a rugby player. It produced Hayden Padden in a rally car. Probably not a great thing going around the rectory. Tom Walsh was doing the shot putting on that. And, the great Jack Lovelock used to run around it and prepared to go to running races. So to be fair, the most important and most influential ground in New Zealand has to be Timaru Boys High School Rectory.
Look, I think it probably is. It's off to one side as far as this conversation is concerned, probably, but the history of it is magnificent. Can I ask you about the University of Otago Oval, a ground you know well. Haven't had a test match there for 7 or 8 years. White ball matches are played there. How do the players like the University of Otago Oval?
Yeah, it's a lovely ground, a beautiful ground. The problem you get, it's the old stereotype. Tim Southey, Trent Bolt used to turn up here and talk about how cold it always was. It could be 30 degrees, and they'd always wear a sweater, and they'd act like it's always cold and those sort of things. But no, it's an awesome ground to play on. Again, from a fan's point of view, you are so close because it's not as big as those other grounds. The change rooms are good, the viewing area is good. It is, and it's got a wonderful pitch now. It's probably, it's more of a batting pitch than a bowling pitch, especially in one-day cricket. The only challenge we've got with the Uni Oval now is just the size, because especially in the male game, the guys hit the ball so far that, you can sort of clonk a six. From a female point of view, wonderful ground, wonderful size, and you get rewards. So, it definitely would be all the play. Also, University Oval, Piney, have got the best training facilities, best quality pitches in the country, bar none. And I say that not just because I'm biased, but I know from all the reports, probably for the last 3 or 4 years, the training pitches are as good as anywhere in the country. So that's a huge plus, especially when you're here as an international team, you're training for 3 or 4 days. And the beauty with Dunedin is, as you know, it's not far. You're in your hotel, you're a couple of minutes walk down to the main street, so everything's nice and close. So it's a good place to come from a touring point of view, but also from a home point of view.
Do you like Pukakura Park?
No, hate it. How's that?
Well, it's a short answer. Can you elaborate?
Well, I fielded there in a one-day game against Central Districts, and I was at cover, and the ball rolled, bounced up, hit me in the mouth, and knocked out 4 teeth.
Okay.
So no, I hate it. I literally lost 4 teeth. I got 4 implants, and they were all lying on the pitch.
Wow.
So that's why I hate it. And the other reason I hate it was we used to turn up there, and a young Ross Taylor used to get 100 against us every time we played there. He literally just stood there and hit every ball on the bank. So never had a positive experience at Pukakura Park, Piney. So I did. I don't like it so much for one-day cricket. It's too small. But I did play a few 4-day games there, and the boundary size isn't as important. And the beauty thing about Pukakura Park is, I think Martin Crowe said there are 2 things guaranteed in life: 100 at Pukakura Park and taxes.
Yeah.
But I think I didn't get 100. I nicked out early, actually. But you've got the gardens behind, so you could go for a lovely 30-minute run, flush the mental torment of getting out for a duck, and then you come back and always enjoy a good lunch. So that was a good part. But from a ground point of view, I have had no positive experiences, and every time I brush my teeth in the morning, I get a reminder of what it was like to field there.
Well, gee, I'm glad I brought that up. Can we just finish with Eden Park, which again is steeped in history? You think about the historical Test matches New Zealand has played there, but these days, cavernous, and look, I don't know whether Test cricket will ever return to Eden Park, but as a ground for a player, what are your memories of Eden Park?
Yeah, well, I played. I don't think I played with the new dimensions. I played when it used to go to the corner. And I actually played my first ever one-day game at Eden Park in New Zealand for New Zealand. I'd been to Pakistan, came back and played. And all I remember, well, 3 things I remember. One, I misfielded one on the best outfield in the world, and I stuffed a run-up out. The next one was I went out to open the batting with Stephen Fleming, and he ran me out, and he called yes. I could have called no, Piney, but whoever says no to Stephen Fleming and runs out the skipper, so I just sacrificed myself. And he did come up after he got out and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You know the rules, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I do, Fleming." Scott Storris got 100 that day, but I do remember being about 24,000 people, and it was a wonderful atmosphere. It was so good. The dimensions were, I remember the World Cup in 91, the short third man to the left-hander and the slam the other way, but the pitch, the problem with, I think, Eden Park is the pitch is too fast and bouncy for the size of the ground. It's such a good pitch there and so much pace and bounce. That's why, the boundaries get made to look smaller than they even are. But I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get... I think, if we want to have a proper ground, it's also the fan experience, sitting in the grandstands. We talk about Basin, Hagley, Bay Oval. The beautiful part of that is sitting on grass banks, being able to walk around, whereas, you get the old concrete jungle. I mean, my favourite ground, Piney, if we want to go back, my one was Lancaster Park. I grew up watching Test cricket there. I went to my first Test match there. I saw John Wright get 100 against Australia. I went to my first rugby Test there, which was the British Lions in '83. Cowboy Shaw scored the only try. That was where all my dreams were made about playing for Canterbury back then, and also playing for New Zealand. And lucky enough, I got to make my first class debut there for Canterbury, and I got to make my Test debut there for New Zealand at Lancaster Park. And that was a ground. That was the days of the old embankment. That was, like Carisbrook, I still remember those days, and they were my favourite grounds. They were favourite grounds to watch, and they were favourite grounds to play on, and we miss them. But the game has moved on. So I just don't know about Eden Park. I think Auckland do need to find a specific ground that works for cricket, for international cricket, and then they would get Test cricket back.
Indeed. You've given our listeners plenty of food for thought. The lines will be lighting up very shortly, Craig.
And I apologise. I just said I got some great memories of playing for Canterbury and obviously Lancaster Park. So hopefully, Piney, I've pulled myself back after that early statement.
I'm not sure you have, but we're about to find out. Hey, Craig, I know you've got an exciting 2025 ahead. You're heading offshore to take up a new coaching challenge. I wish you all the best with that. Thanks for your contributions across the year. Merry Christmas to you and your family, mate, and we'll catch up next year.
Likewise, Piney. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Craig. Craig Cumming there with great analysis of the grounds of New Zealand.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.